The question in my mind is, how do you create or relaunch a highly profitable and successful 6 to 7 figure business? With so much conflicting advice about the best ways to start and grow your business, how do you get it right the first time? I want to help entrepreneurs make a real difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. My name is John North, and this is the Startup Secrets for Entrepreneur Show. Join me today when we dig deep with our guests and get you the best blueprint so you can fast track your own business. This episode is sponsored by Evolvepreneur.app, your all-in-one online business system. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at startupsecrets.show right now. So let's get into today's episode.
My name is Martin Renaud from Freedom Potential and editonthespot.com. I was just appeared on Startup Secrets with John North, and you should really watch that show. It was a great conversation about startups, how to pivot, and how to make sure that you are never caught again you're with your pants down in a pandemic. Tune in.
So today my very special guest is Martin Renaud, who's an experienced photographer and producer and starter of the founder of Freedom Potential. So welcome, Martin, to the show.
Hi, John. How you doing?
Cool, man. So it's good to see, introducing or interviewing some Australians. I've had quite a few lately on the show, so it's really cool.
Yep.
So given your accent, I'm guessing you weren't necessarily born in Australia?
Correct. I was born in Ottawa, Canada. I'm French-Canadian.
Right. Okay.
One of those guys.
I reckon Australians and Canadians have got a lot to do with common. I think it's very, very. I think we get on fairly well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love being here.
Yeah.
I've been here 14 years or something.
Right. Nice. Cool.
Naturalized.
Yeah. Okay. You've had the passport and everything. Cool. So, in terms of video production, how long have you been in that sort of game? Did you start off with that sort of thing, or did you sort of move?
Yeah, so I come from a background in contemporary arts, electronic arts, and installations, multimedia performances, and so I started my career in video production, film, TV in 2004, 2005. So it's over 15 years, and basically started in Montreal, then in Melbourne, then in Sydney, and now I'm on the Gold Coast. Every time
you just kept going to warm places, right?
yeah, absolutely. Well, we're like traveling to the warmer climates.
Yeah, exactly right. You've been North Queensland next year.
Yeah, exactly. And basically working for so the first 12 years of my career, 11 years of my career, I was managing and directing non-profit organization screen resource centers that are basically dedicated to help emerging and independent filmmakers, offering a whole range of services from studio equipment hire, production support, networking, et cetera, mm-hmm. And as well as a RTO. So like I help develop and put together courses in directing, Cert for ad dip in screen and media and that type of projects. And then I started my own production company as a sole trader. And from last year, with the pandemic pivot, we started a PTO Limited, Freedom Potential, and established a studio on the Gold Coast so we can welcome our clients in our studio instead of hiring venues and other studios, especially when they close down. That is not a great business.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Like at least if you can stay within some rules when you've got your own facilities, but when you've got to go to someone else's, there's all sorts of crazy stuff they'll come up with on you, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And because our specialty is live events, so filming and live streaming live events and hybrid events. So when the pivot happened, we basically really focused on those hybrid events, meaning that, in our studio, we have a capacity for 30 people in the room, as well as, obviously unlimited participants online. And when we're talking about hybrid events, it basically means that there's interaction between the presenters, the crowds, and online. So, we have facilities with different screens and PA and microphones to basically have these interaction going.
It's not much different to a TV show, isn't it? At the end of the day,
it's pretty much like a TV show. It's like a one-man band TV show. That's our big innovation. Is that after doing like 5 years of multicam projects and live streaming in Sydney, when I moved to the Gold Coast, I started working on a solo operated 3-camera plus slides and overlays live stream system, live event system. So basically, it allows one operator to basically operate 3 cameras, slides, overlays, sound, and kind of make it work.
Wow. Because I did some production in LA, and the guy that I work with, he had a camera guy, he had him, he had a sound guy working for him as well. So it was all these sort of people running around, and so that's a big cost to the overall result, doesn't it? And you talk about an interesting thing about multi-camera, because that's something that most people don't sort of understand or see, is that if you do a multi-camera kind of a scenario where, basically, and you probably explain it better than me, but having multiple cameras at different angles makes even if you're editing the final result a lot better, right? Because you've got those different angles to be able to bring in with the same sound.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so much better. And the thing is, so, with the big shift, towards video conferencing, towards Zoom calls and whatnot, is that everyone is kind of stuck behind their laptop or their computer or their desktop there. However, when you come to facilities like us, you can actually present, right? So you can stand, walk around. We have like a big display on stage, so you can address your PowerPoint, say, or present videos, or drag through websites, or have a Zoom guest, like live, and then talk to them, and back, and kind of have this more fluid and more more fluid experience, really, of any sort of presentation or training or podcast, interview, et cetera. And with this system, basically what it is we have like a wide angle that shows what's happening on stage, and then we have a close-up which follows the like a operated close-up that follows the presenter or follows the action, and then we have another camera. If there's a crowd, then the camera shows the crowd. Gotcha. And then suddenly you have 3 angles to work with. So you can take a question from the crowd, and then we see who's there, who's in the audience, asking the question, and then we can have this live switch. Basically, that's what we're doing. We're switching live between those sources. Or if there's some type of operation, like a kitchen show, for example, we can have an overhead camera, and then that's the 3rd angle, and we can work, around that. We can just be creative with those angles.
Because it makes a lot of difference. Because if you make a mistake, when you've got only one angle, it's very difficult to fix. It's almost impossible to fix that. Whereas you got that other kind of transition.
Well, that's the minimum. The minimum is really for any sort of interview work, in video production, you have 2 cameras minimum. So exactly as you say, when you make a mistake, you can cut to the next camera. Most people do this in post-production, but when we can do this during the live production, it just makes the workflow so much faster. So basically, like what we do is, if you book the studio, or we also work on location, obviously. And it's a turnkey environment, so you just walk in, bring your slides, set yourself up, we mic you up, we light you up properly, and you basically ready to deliver your content. And typically they are like longer forms, so an hour, 2, a whole day, 5, 6, 7 days, 9 days. We've done some really long events, and even like for 9 days straight, 12 hours a day, people on the live stream, at home, like being like scotched to their, like 90%, 95% of the audience like remain, it's just there, for 12 hours at a time. We were always really impressed by that. And that's just because of the the interaction and the comfort of home as well.
Sure.
But where I was going with this is that you basically it's like a walk-in solution, and from those longer form content, we repurpose this material.
Yeah.
So we create, for example, we have a social media clip package. So, and that's really important when whatever you record, like how to maximize the impact of your content is repurposing. So, where is it going to go? How I'm going to promote it? Keep snippets, find the gold nuggets, and then reformat for different platforms and for different purposes, right? So do a lot of that.
Just think one thing, right? Because at the end of the day, even in a video scenario like what we're doing, we're creating a video, we also create an audio, and at the end of the day, you'll create a transcript from that as well. So you've actually created three different pieces of content that the internet considers three different pieces of content. Like, they don't consider it all the same.
Yes. And John, I know that your show and your interest is all around startups. So, I mean, technically, I would say Freedom Potential is a startup because we're big, because it's starting up. However, from Freedom Potential P2A Limited, we have now created another entity called Edit on the Spot, which is an actual tech startup, and that we have my partner and I, my business partner and I, we have, and we are steering as a tech startup, it's our way to, it was our second pivot, I would say, in the year. So after we lost all our contracts on locations in venues, hotels, and whatnot, and opened our studio here, Freedom Potential, like we were having a walk around the lake here, and we were asking ourselves, okay, so how can we bulletproof ourselves from any sort of economic downturn or some sort of, crisis?
It's a very good question to ask yourself, I think, in small business. I think a lot of people forget in small business that they don't ask themselves that question until they actually get shot, right? It's almost like you get shot, and if you live in, and everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the face.
Exactly, and we did. I mean, like before, up until March, like we were running 2-3 events per day, like over the weekends, and 3-4 days a week, and just 2 weeks before, I was in Vegas filming for a large conference, and I had 2 teams here working on other events, and it was crazy. It was like there was a really big peak, in the business, and then everything went flat. So we thought, okay, well, let's find a studio, let's find our own place so we can have our own, be private in our own, setup. Yeah. However, the next step is Edit on the Spot. So we thought, okay, how can we go global with video production? Because it's still, if you have a studio, it's great, but you're still limited by the number of days and number of hours in a day. And yes, you can add fries with this and kind of repurpose materials so you have more income and then you create more value. Sure, but there's a limit to that. And we thought, well, how can we just blow it up? And so we came up with this concept, about repurposing clips, because my interest from all these years is to how to optimize workflow, how to make this, just like what I was explaining about the live shows, right? The multicam shows. Now we Edit on the Spot. We edit while you're filming remotely on demand. So basically, this conversation we're having right now on Zoom, and I'm sure that you'll be interested in the service. Basically, we are able to capture the feed and having an editor, for now, manually, editing in the background while we're speaking. So tip and tail, the whole program, create segments from all those, questions that you ask me and my answers, create social media clips in Instagram, Square, vertical, with titles, calls to actions, and with templates that we've created in advance. All of this, multiple assets while we're talking, while we're filming, and then deliver it shortly after. So this is what we're actually in beta now. We're offering this service already. It's called Edit on the Spot at editOnTheSpot.com.
Nice.
And it's compatible with Zoom. We can capture studio cameras like what we'll be doing here. It's compatible with Google Hangouts, with Teams. You can run a Facebook Live or a YouTube live stream, and then we basically capture it in the background and work on it on the background. And our idea is to automate this process as much as possible. First, through the interface, but also the editing process through machine learning and artificial intelligence, and then basically launch a global platform where people can, at a touch of a button and a selection, of a menu, uploading your logo, your brand guide, you can basically get edited material straight out of any live stream, video conferencing, live stream, or studio operation that you're doing.
Wow!
So that's our big. That's our big call right now. That's our big.
It is a good bulletproof scenario, because at the end of the day, you don't have any barriers to that scenario outside technology, right? So you don't have the situation where someone's hotel room is going to, you're going to shut something down, or someone's going to be sick that day. You actually can virtually set it up. So would then the person they run the software then? That basically it's almost like you're just paying for the software and you're just running it as part of what you're doing. Is that how it works?
Pretty much, yeah. So it's a SaaS product, so a software as service product, and will work as a web app and as integrations to the different different system. So right now we're offering it manually over IP, and we have a booking form on the website, whatnot, that allows us to. We have a way to connect to those different systems, but we're going to automate them. So we're working first on the Zoom integration. Basically, it's going to be in the app store of Zoom. You can download Edit on the Spot, and then there's basically the menus that take you through the process there. So web app and integrations for the different platforms.
Yeah, and you're kind of taking it bit by bit. So sometimes manually doing it in any sort of project, doesn't matter whether it's technical or whatever, it's but manually doing the process until you fine tune it is a lot better than actually developing and then realizing you made this massive mistake in the way you spec'd it, and then suddenly the whole thing doesn't work properly, because that's what usually happens with a tech startup. So you take the wrong direction too quick.
That's exactly right. And you're a specialist in startups, so you would know that it's really important to test the market first. As you're saying. So that's what we've done. We actually this is a project that's 3 months old, and we registered the business like a month ago. Nice. But it's going incredibly fast. I think that's the nature of startups as well. It's like You just gotta hit the ground and run and that's exactly. And you
can't run the big guys then, because the big guys are usually fairly fat and they can't run, right? So it's like
that's right. That's why we're so fast. And what I was about to say, so we're like way in advance on our roadmap, because we were planning to only be able to connect to Zoom like in 3 months, but we're already doing it, and we're already onboarding clients for that. The important thing is, again, is market data. So we started with this idea, and then we enrolled into Startup on Ramp, which is like a free online program that's delivered at least in Queensland by the government. Mm-hmm. And we also enrolled in Techstar Startup Weekend, which is like a boot camp, like a weekend boot camp where you literally pitch your idea, and then and then try to put your business together, like collect yourself within a weekend, within 72 hours with a team. Wow. and then pitch your idea, create like your pitch deck, your budget, your minimum viable product, like just everything, and like just launch the business in 3 days. Wow. And so we did, and we won that startup weekend, Techstar Startup Weekend on the Gold Coast. Yeah. And then from there, as part of the prize was like, so many hours of mentorship, and then, people on some of the juries were on accelerators, so they've invited us to apply, and then we applied on also many different accelerators, which is basically a way to take your business, a startup, basically to take your business from 0 to 100 as the fastest as possible, and build traction. And then since then, we've been starting to enroll people, to build traction, to look at what is required for patenting, what is required for capital raising, what is required for all sorts of aspects of starting and beginning, the beginning phase of a startup.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea, and I think obviously if you can get that interest, it validates your idea. So you're in a situation where you're fairly confident you've got the right idea, and then you don't have to spend the next 2 years figuring out that you had the bad idea. No one is willing to tell you that. So in the early days, it's good to know that you validated the idea and you know that it has traction because someone else will buy into it. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Yep. What's really on that note, what's really exciting is to see how the feedback that we receive, because it obviously goes in all type of directions. We've contacted many podcasters, YouTubers, video production companies, and offered them the service or asked them for their opinion and a bit of some ideas about your workflow. Actually, I'd love to know a little bit more about your workflow. I'd like you to tell me a little bit of how you actually create your show.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just got so many different responses and so many new ideas. So then it's about like how we gonna package it and get the product right. So we have the technology and the idea behind it, but what's the product? And so only just recently we came up with a bunch of use cases basically. So how about you? What's the process for you to create your show?
Well, it's actually interesting because part of the reason for the show is to showcase our actual SaaS app, which is Evolvepreneur.app. And so what we do as part of the process, which you want to notice, is we do an application in there. So basically, a lot of the problems with podcasters that I've seen is that it's very messy. So they've got a situation where they might have a Google Doc for the application, and then you send some emails, and then there's some other stuff somewhere else, and then you got to book an appointment, and it's all over the place. And normally what happens too is if the guest falls off the rails and doesn't do the next steps, then you're doomed. So for example, they might say, you're now approved for the show, we'll send you a form to fill out, and then you never fill the form out, right? And so we set it up in our platform to have the application process. So you fill out the application, it flows into a ticket. The ticket then we approve or decline it. We're building a bit of workflow for that to be actually more sophisticated. And then they take them through some steps. So basically, once the guest has been said, okay, you're a guest, here's your steps to do next. And they basically essentially tick off those steps. And that gives us an opportunity to kind of also, engage with the new guest and educate them about the show and all that kind of stuff. So, and then our platform also lets us do podcasting and upload it as well. So basically, the next step is that once we improve that podcast, it's going to set up an episode layout already from a template. So basically, your layout's all ready to go. And so as a host, all you do is basically show up, and then you've got your episode ready to go with your transcript, whatever you want to have for that show, information about the guest, all that kind of thing in one place. So almost it's a 10-second or like a 10-minute read through what they're about, and you're on, as opposed to trying to research them and try and find stuff out. And at the end of that process, because you filled out the information in the application, we've automatically created your profile. So your actual profile for you as a guest is actually in a database already and displayable on the web, and we just link that profile to the episode. So that whole thing is totally almost automated, outside the fact that we actually then just need to record the episode, upload the episode, and then we build subscribers off the database that we've actually got in terms of our platform. And so as soon as the episode gets launched, we just send out an email automatically and post to social media. So almost none of that process is manual, ultimately, outside doing the show. But at the same time, the guest is working through the process, so it's on him or her to show up, right? So they basically do the steps, fill out the forms, or fill out the answers, and then as they progress, it says, okay, time to book the call. So the first time I know a call is going to happen or an interview is going to happen is when I get the advice that, you just got to show up at 10 o'clock. So that cuts that whole messy process down. So like a really busy entrepreneur who hasn't got any technical skills typically, they don't want to muck around with all that stuff. So it's kind of like an end-to-end guesting system. But at the same time, you've created a community around that. So there's a profile system in the back end, like LinkedIn kind of thing. And so people can connect and do all sorts of things. So that's that's the short story.
But that's fascinating because Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, we should definitely collaborate, because you got one part,
Yes.
the podcast creation, and then we got the repurposing of your show on the other side,
Yep.
and see like all this user bookings system, and then automation of the process, and then of the capture and publication. It's basically very, very similar to the process that we're putting together. And when you're saying, like, yeah, you write a Google form, and then it's a bit messy, and we're still in that phase, right? We're just launching our beta, so yeah, we have a Google form, and then it becomes a spreadsheet that then the editor work with. But that's a product like yours allows to automate these services and make it so much smoother, and most importantly for the retention, because that's where we're looking for, retention of guests in your case, and also to automate the process of creating podcasts and live recordings, and then on our side is a similar thing. However, it's about repurposing the content.
Because the thing is that at the end of the day, you can do so much automation, but at the end of the day, a human being needs to look at it, because a human being needs to look at it at the other end. So it's almost the computer might think it's a good idea, but it's not. And the other thing we worked on, which we're sort of close to finishing, is actually a on-demand video component to our system, where it allows the person, so when you're doing a show, you could have a series of episodes. We can actually build that in a Netflix style inside our platform, so they can actually have a series of shows go out that are actually video shows, and have subscribers or things like that. In terms of that, people might be paying for content in a kind of like an on-demand type of thing. So we see the same thing you're seeing in terms of the big demand now, and it was slowly getting there last year. In some respects, I wouldn't say the pandemic's good for anybody, but it was good because what it did is push people into having that thought process about being bulletproof, because they all thought, I can just get speaking gigs, I can do what I like. Suddenly the entire thing shut down. And so a lot of those people that are in that marketplace can't just go and do speaking gigs anymore. They've got to pivot. And then they don't really understand how to do it properly on a Zoom call, so they kind of like try to muddle way there through. So I think there's a big opportunity there for that repurposing of the market. But also, the likes of Tony Robbins, who's spent, zillions on building studios and stuff, because he knows that he'll probably never be able to really travel in the level that he was before. But he can't, he's still deliver that thousands of people. So, I think it's an interesting time. And for us, it was about building that process, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't focus on the process, and they can't scale because the process isn't trainable. They can't get someone else to do it, because they never documented it properly, or they just don't have that, rigid, step-by-step thing they have to implement. So,
yeah, it's really key in scaling for sure.
Yeah,
that's the difference between being a sole trader and kind of scraping different jobs and try to get your basic processes so it's actually functional, and then setting up a company with systems and onboarding employees, contractors into your systems, and having systems for everything from production, post-production, marketing, finance, and it's basically it's all about creating value, right? Like obviously it's it makes life easier to have processes. However, the main essence of those processes is they actually extremely valuable. They add to the value of your company.
Yes.
Right. If you're a sole trader with a handful of clients, there's not much to, you can maybe sell your client list or refer them, but there's nothing much more than that.
Although your
However,
competitors will probably steal it when they sniff the business problem. Your competitors probably grab your clients. So there's a big danger. So building IP. And what you're doing there is cute, because what you're doing is you're taking what you know, and you're basically systemizing it and creating something that's duplicatable, and then it's easy to replicate and expand that way, rather than try to do a custom solution. I guess it's the same as building a house, or building a custom house. There's big differences in that, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So tell me a little bit about, because we're running pretty close to the line now, but I want to talk about a little bit about video funnels and stuff like that, because as you said, you've just
sure
stuff on that. So what's your sort of number? Say, give us 2 or 3 tips on what you should be doing in video funnels. And the concept is that obviously these funnels are typically more than one page, right? So they're taking through a process of a couple of videos perhaps. So getting them from the initial sign up through to some sort of end result, right?
Okay. Well, there's many tools out there available to create funnels, whether it's Unbounce or ClickFunnels, or there's all those tools that are existing that helps you to create landing pages and to have content display there and whatnot. But really, if we take it a macroscopic view, basically a funnel is a way to basically bring awareness to your brand or your service, to answer people's questions about and to retain their attention, and then to give them an offer or like a call to action. And these are the 3 main steps or the 3 main parts of the funnel. And the way that we create those projects for our clients typically is, it's about what we were, the part of the conversation earlier is about repurposing materials. So typically we spend X amount of time, at least half a day or more, depending of the client and the size of the business or the project. But basically we film some material that allow us to create different type of content to repurpose in different ways. So typically at the top of the funnel, you would have an advertisement. So you would have an ad, whether it's on social media or on TV or on billboards, but it's something that grabs the attention and that addresses the pain of the target market.
Yep.
And so basically from that, and this is like an ad, right? So advertisement. There are different ways that we can create these ads, but in general, you really just want to be punchy and to the point, and then put a pain out there, and then say we can help, basically.
Yep, you got
then the second layer is once you brought awareness to your target market of your product or service, and they are curious about it, then we create content, video content that addresses the questions that the potential clients, that the warm leads now has about your product, right? It's like when I told you about Edit on the Spot earlier, and then you go, yeah, but can I do this on Zoom, or is it possible to do it on Facebook? So, yeah, so one of our best advice here, and a type of material that works really well for most businesses, is to record answers to your frequently asked questions, your FAQs.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So for every business, it's really important to keep track of what are the questions that you receive over and over. That your customers are asking. Any type of business, whether it's a restaurant or a SaaS product like yours, there's always going to be curiosity.
So it's 80% of the questions are all the same.
Yeah, exactly. So by recording answers to those questions, and then obviously optimizing this for search engines, and having them available on your website, having them available on different platforms, that basically warm up your target markets to your business, and they are now in the phase, once their questions are answered, or they have enough point of contact with your business through those questions, then they are in the selection phase. Yeah. So they're gonna then decide if they're going to go with you or they're going to try to find an alternative. So this is where we create another type of material and another type of video content, which is call to actions, basically. And usually what we workshop or strategize with our clients is what is an irresistible offer that you can give that will, in a call to action, that will make this warm leads becoming your client, like jumping, on board and with delight, really. So that's the main process, right? And then, I could extend on which platform we use and how it's how we get the results, of how we use the data or how we tweak, the different part of the funnel. Because we do some, say, split testing. We can have 2 different ads running and then see which one performs most for which market. And there's a lot in the back end, but the basic strategy is that try to attract attention, get awareness, answer questions, and then have a call to action. So with all those points of contact with your market, you can warm up your leads and sell them your goods or services.
Some people might think, just film one video, it's good enough, right? So they won't address those scenarios. They'll try and lump it all in one spot. So what you're doing is quite logical, and it's gold when you think about it, because most people don't think about that process so much. So they're thinking, I'll just do one marketing video or I'll just do one thing and that'll be it. But the reality is that you need to address the thing at the right time. So that customer's not necessarily interested in frequently asked questions unless they're interested in your product, right? Because they don't care about it at all. So getting them the right time and getting that video at the right time at the right space and answering the right questions is probably a great way to automate ultimately, because what you can do is you can take that potential customer and basically get them watching a video that means you don't have to answer that question. Then you can move on to the next thing in terms of that. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. Well, typically, like we have, there's a step in this funnel where we capture the contact details of when we believe that the customer or the potential customer is engaged enough, within the funnel, then we capture their contact details, and then we organize, some sort of sales calls or some sort of, post. Email funnel or something like that, so we can get in contact with them. So the first part, like you don't really know who actually watches your videos or who is, until they get engaged sufficiently.
Start filling out forms until I start filling out
exactly.
forms or some description. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's that's my 2 bits of insight on.
Your 5-minute job. Cool, man. You've done a great job. I really appreciate your time. I really, and it's fantastic. We've got some fantastic gold nuggets in there. So I think if people just take 1 or 2 things away from this, they're going to make a big difference in what they're doing now. So just to recap on how someone can get in touch with you, you've got the 2 websites, right? So you've got the freedompotential.com. freedompotential.com.au. This is our video production business, including a studio on the Gold Coast. Yep. By the way, if you are in lockdown and you have work to do, we have actually serviced many Melburnians, Sydney-siders, Malaysian companies, American companies that need to film on the Gold Coast, and because we're open for business, basically, we interestingly enough, we set up and then we have the clients direct from afar, like on Zoom. Yeah. So we bring you on Zoom and then we switch between the cameras and then we can show you which angles. I've seen that happen in 60 Minutes. Recently with 60 Minutes when they got locked down, I think they basically started this concept of interviewing people over laptops. And they must have had a camera or something at the other end as well, because the camera work is done without them in front of the computer, or must be a side camera or something like that. So it's quite smart because they can cut out to the camera and bring it back.
Well, there's a lot of tricks these days. There's a lot of expertise, like in organizing those remote interviews and content. And then editonthespot.com, that's our startup. That's we film while you're editing. Sorry, it's the other way around. We edit while you're filming on demand. And this is how to connect. If you go on if you're interested in editing on the spot, we have a beta program right now, and we're offering some free trials. So you go on the website and then you can register for the beta, and we will be in touch and cool. Set up with you.
That's great. And it's great to see. I mean, I think Australian innovation is always good to see, right? And I think there's a lot of stuff's coming out of Australia, including the fridge. So basically, it's a great idea.
It is.
But thanks so much for coming on the show, and we'll probably come and get you on again sometime soon.
My pleasure.
That's a wrap on another awesome episode for the Startup Secret Show for entrepreneurs. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we'd be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at startupsecrets.show right now. Until next time, if you're an entrepreneur, make a start on your next great business idea today.